I was 17 months in solitary confinement, 27 months by the time I negotiated my way out. And if I could have killed myself, I would have done it.
Garry Lineham, a founder of Human Garage, who after 2 decades of living in chronic pain, discovered what modern medicine has overlooked for decades: that your fascia, the hidden web inside your body, holds trauma, controls your nervous system, and holds the key to unlocking your body's true power to heal. He has worked with top athletes, performers, CEOs, and world-class doctors, helping them release years of stored tension, reverse chronic pain, and reset their body's natural rhythm.
I realized that there isn't a single person in the world today that has never experienced trauma. And I always look at it from less about the anger or whatever they're experiencing in that moment that's negative, and more about what is it that I can do to help them.
And in 2005, I basically realized that the government was spying on everybody. And I came out as a whistleblower. The story that we're told about how we live and who we are has been completely corrupted and manipulated. And that corruption and manipulation is what's keeping us sick.
What am I doing in that moment when I'm not feeling pain, but I want to release the stress and not become reactive? There is a fascial maneuver.
Yeah, the 15-minute stress reset.
Yeah.
You could do that, and literally within 15 minutes, 75 to 90% of the stress, no matter how you measure it, is gone.
Stress has always been the biggest denominator of why most people are sick. Stress causes inflammation. Inflammation is the root of sickness and disease. And if we're just able to manage the inflammation in our bodies through managing stress, to managing what we're consuming every single day, our body is always speaking to each other for the brain and our gut. And that bidirectional communicator is always going to be our definition on how long we're going to live.
The pain is trying to teach me something. And if I listen to it and ask the right questions, I'll find the answer. Stop trying to fix it. Because if I fix the pain without listening to why it's there, when it comes back, it will be worse.
Garry.
Mary Christine.
How are you?
I'm so excited about doing this.
I know, me too. Welcome to the Be That Life experience. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You want to sync up?
Yeah, I'd love to sync up.
Because that's
Let's
our
do
new
it.
thing,
Yes,
right?
Of course.
Okay, so you've got your right leg over. So you can just leave your right leg over. Right hand underneath left armpit. Left hand on top. Head to the left, body to the right. 6 breaths, 3 through the mouth. Breathe in. 3 through the nose. We're back in our bubble.
We're back in our bubble. You did amazing, by the way, at the Superhuman event today.
Thank you.
No, not today. 2 days ago, sorry. It was a couple of days ago.
A couple days?
It was a couple of days ago.
It doesn't feel like
it. Doesn't feel like it. It just feels like it was today.
It feels like time warped, didn't it?
Yeah, it did feel like it time warped.
Yeah.
And also, I saw you in Dubai not so long ago, and you performed something super epic on my jaw, which is, by the way, extremely painful.
Yes.
But you could see the difference right away, right? And you showed me the same with Dr. Mark Hyman. Like, I was so blown away by that one.
Yeah.
Because you could really tell like a massive difference between
a shift.
That shift between what you did in the jaw with Mark. So
you know, the jaw is so important. One of the foundations of all, if we clench our jaw, like when people are overstressed, they clench their jaw, and over time we get compressed. And if we keep clenching our jaw, it tells our body we're in stress, so we clench more. It's a cyclical effect. That's why it's so powerful.
But also, we do a lot of that when we're sleeping.
Yes.
And it's something that we can't control, right? And that's happening with most people. And for example, like myself, I never used to have like really large masseters.
Yeah.
And over time, because of the clenching when I'm sleeping, it got a lot bigger. Mm-hmm. So I would do a lot of treatments for it to make it back to like a really narrow shape. But for a lot of people, you know, over time, the muscle just, if you're not doing anything about it, it just gets bigger and bigger. And what's your take on that?
Well, we have a non-surgical facelift.
Yeah.
And you take your body out of stress, you stop doing that.
Is that the one that you did on me?
Well, that's me as a practitioner, but we've got the facelift you do by yourself at home. It takes about 15 minutes. And if you do that for a month, you'll stop clenching at night for sure. Because the reason why we clench is stress, like mastication is to relieve stress. That's why people who obsessively chew gum, their body's tight and they're in stress. And so one of the ways that you can do it is that non-surgical facelift, which you can download or you can go to our YouTube and get, and it's It's so easy, it's free, and you can do it on a daily basis. Also, it brings collagen back to the face, makes you look younger too.
Yeah, it's so cool. I would love to try that. I mean, do you need to do that every single day for like the rest of your life?
No, but
But
if
what's the protocol?
you do it, I mean, literally after you get used to it, you can do it in about 7 to 10 minutes, and it rejuvenates your face like instantaneously. It's noticeable and very different. Eyes get brighter, collagen flows better, cheeks are tighter and more aligned, and the color's back.
That's amazing. I definitely want to try it out. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
You have been in this space of healing thousands and thousands and thousands of people globally. Yet, I really want to understand the human behind the story, right? Because we all start from somewhere. And before we even get into all these incredible things that you've done, because by the way, for me, you're like one of my top role models and true inspiration. Like I look up to what you do.
Thank you.
It's so incredible. But we all have a story before we even get to where we are today and why we're doing what we're doing, right? And I want to understand your journey, Garry before Human Garage, before the impact, before creating what you created, because you went through something really tough and really painful. So I want to take us back to that moment.
A lot of things. I was an entrepreneur and involved in a lot of businesses, like 13 of my own companies, public companies, tens and tens of millions of dollars. And one of them was, which led to the final, first of all, I was a bodybuilder, worked out my whole life, functioned on nutrition, owned a nutrition company at one point. And through that journey, I was always active, always working out, was in the gym 3 to 4 or 5 days a week, almost my entire life. And I hurt myself when I was young competing. And so I was always trying to fix myself. And what I mean by fixing myself is I had a back pain, a neck pain, I had jaw tightness. I had PTSD. I didn't recognize it as PTSD because I had multiple concussions probably. At that time, I think 5 concussions by the time I was in my mid-30s. Car accidents, fight once, a couple of just unfortunate hits like sporting events and stuff like that. And so I was in this messed up state trying to function and be normal. And I was using a lot of drugs and alcohol to balance myself. And I was functionally functionally an addict, basically.
How old were you?
It progressed. I mean, it was in my late 20s and 30s. By the time I was in my mid 30s, I'm using quite a bit of alcohol and drugs to maintain myself. And then at the same time running public companies, hundreds and sometimes thousands of employees depending on the company. But I think where you're going is the encryption company that I had. So I encrypted data, and I encrypted wireless data on BlackBerries, and I encrypted for anybody and everybody, governments, black ops, military, pharmaceutical companies, law firms. But I was a network behind. I was the guy who provided it. It was 4,096-bit wireless encryption. It was something that governments couldn't crack at that time, and I provided it for everybody. But a lot of it was providing it for governments and officials. And in 2005, I basically realized that the government was spying on everybody, and I came out as a whistleblower. There was no Whistleblower Protection Act back then, but I just said the government's spying on everybody, and I didn't really tell everybody what I knew, because I knew all kinds of dirty stuff. Everything that you're starting to see come out in the news right now, with the celebrities and the governments and all the craziness, that's been around and known for a long time. But I became aware of that from 2000 to 2005. And I just said, I don't want to be part of this. There was sex trafficking, there was guns, there was drugs, there was all kinds of stuff. And I decided to come out. But my coming out was also saying, hey, since the government's illegally spying on you, you can actually protect yourself, and you have the right to protection and privacy. So I just took that as an angle, and I gave BlackBerries to anybody in the world that wanted to, with a level of encryption that the government, CIA, FBI, and stuff like that could not decrypt. And it was all fine when I was working with them, but when I started giving it to the regular public, and I was being vocal about it, that's when they decided to silence me. So they had a confidential informant that worked for me for a whole bunch of years as a personal assistant. 2 years working for me, 2 years working for a partner. So it's 4 years they're planning this. The confidential informant, they said that she was in a drug ring. They arrested her and arrested me as the person who was directing her. And then they also charged me for encrypting data, which is not illegal. And then they also gave me a $4,000 money laundering charge, which denied me bail. So I'm in the United States as a foreign national with 2 passports and a $4,000 money laundering charge, which denied me complete bail. So this was a pretty crazy set of circumstances, but I was 17 months in solitary confinement, 27 months by the time I'd negotiated my way out. And that's where I hit my highest level of pain, and insane. People ask, like, what was it like being in there? And it was like every day was like a year. And there was a point in time in there, about the 4th month in, where I was in so much pain, because I'd already been in pain. I'd gone to hundreds of practitioners. I'd used $2.5 million trying to solve this pain that I had in my body, and it wasn't working. Now I'm locked up. I'm in solitary. I'm sleeping on concrete with a little mat. And if I could have killed myself, I would have done it. I would have killed myself multiple times because it's so intense. And I'm not a guy who prays to God, but at that moment, I prayed to God, and I said, God, if you help me out of this, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure and helping people never have this kind of pain. No kidding, an hour later, my door opened. And usually if the cell door opens, it's not good at that point. You could be getting roughed up. You just don't know what's going to happen. Transferred, moved. It's uncomfortable. And they pushed an old guy in my cell. And that guy happened to be a chiropractor who was a neurologist. And literally an hour later, and for the next 14 months, I got to learn about chiropractic and neurology, and I got myself out of pain while I was sitting in that cell. And when I finally negotiated my way out, and it was a negotiation, but when I negotiated my way out, I made good on that promise. I went out and and started working with doctors and started a clinic called the Rubinstein Center, and that was the precursor to Human Garage, and I dedicated my life to helping people. And that was my turning point.
What was he in for? That's the question. It's an interesting question.
Insurance fraud. The U.S. system is very corrupt, as you know, especially federal, and you weren't allowed to market and pay a marketing company per head. So, like, if you get me 10 people, I give you $1,500 per person. That's $15,000. Every doctor did it at that time, especially in natural spaces, and that was against the law. So they decided to make examples out of a few people. He was one of those people. I don't think inherently he wasn't a bad person. He was in a system where the insurance companies didn't want people doing that, and they were making examples. So,
but I think there's a lot of insurance fraud that goes on everywhere in the world too. I mean, it's a massive thing.
Yeah, and to wrap up some of these doctors and that was just insane. He probably did 8 years for that.
That's wild.
Yeah, but that's part of it. I thought that the U.S. system had justice. And I found out, especially in certain districts, like the 1st, 3rd, and 9th district, there's so much corruption. And now, you get a system that wins like 98% of their trials. And I may be wrong on the exact number, but it's like almost 100%. And if you win 100%, then there's no way to do that statistically other than you're blackmailing people, you're pushing them in. And at that time, no one thought that the system was corrupt. Everybody thought the system was just and moral, but now people are very clearly finding out that the federal government, the systems, the politics are all corrupt. And we just didn't believe that back then. So that was the hardest part about it back then. Everybody that around me would be like, well, if you're innocent, like fight this. And I'm like, that's not how it works. So it was definitely a negotiation.
So did you spend a lot of time trying to fight the system and then realize you couldn't? So there was a lot of negotiation that happened instead of fighting the system.
Well, they wanted the encryption codes they wanted my server, they wanted my data, they wanted information on everybody that I had. But if I gave them the information, myself and everybody that I knew would have been dead anyways. So I just decided to buckle down, and if I was going to spend 40 years or 60 years or 80 years, that's what it was. It was either that or find another way. But I believe the turning point, honestly, it could have gone either way. I believe the turning point was I asked for help. Help was given, and here I am, decades later, living out that commitment.
I mean, the one thing that I know for sure when it comes to situations like that is they really will find every single way to tarnish your reputation. And we both know, being in the space we're in today and what we're doing, in every space, wherever you are, reputation is everything, right? And I feel as if some of the things that go online and the things that people post and the media try to turn everything, it's like we definitely can't believe everything that we read.
Yeah, almost nothing you read these days.
But still you will find a ton of people who believe a lot of the rubbish and nonsense that go online, and yet forget that actually these are all fabricated information just so that the system can get what they need and what they want to, for whatever cause it is,
It's about the headlines.
Situations. Yeah,
because no one even reads. It's just about the headlines.
For the longest time now, I think it's more than 8 years, I just stopped watching the news or reading anything in the papers, because it's literally just negative information all the time. And I've become such a happier person when I stopped watching CNN or any of these like news channels, mainly because of that particular reason. For me, I feel like there's so much nonsense, specifically in the nutrition space and health space, that goes every single day. There's a myth being debunked. Like yesterday it was good for you and today it's not good for you. And I understand that as over time science is evolving, but it's so different. For example, when I would see something in the news and watch it, and then when I go to that country, it's completely different. I'm going to give you an example, and they talk so negatively about, the crime in the UK, and then I go to the UK and it's not even as bad.
Right.
So it's just those kind of things.
Yeah.
I think it's like you have to have your own discernment, and at the end of the day, focus on what you think is right, and give people and situations always the benefit of the doubt. So going back to the topic of the chiropractor, because that's an interesting one, was he able to heal you during the time that you were in there, or at least minimize the amount of pain that you were experiencing?
Yeah, I had a way to manage my pain, but more importantly, I learned a skill, learned how to take all that knowledge and study I had and apply it practically. So after the 17 months of solitary confinement, I was 14 months in a camp waiting for the date. We had some negotiations and waiting for the time to get out. And I was able to help other prisoners. And I helped bosses of gangs, the Hells Angels, the Serengos, and I found out something a really powerful thing is that I didn't have an affiliation in there. It wasn't part of a gang. But I healed people, and because I was helping people heal, and the top people were helping them get out of pain, all of a sudden I was very protected. Right. And I learned one of the most powerful lessons is that you can have all the money in the world, but if you're in pain, you'll give it all up to get out of pain. Right. And if you're able to help somebody, you have a large amount of power. And that also led to me to understand more about the system that we're in, how medicine currently preys on people, because they prey on this fear of pain. And it's like, if you don't listen to me, you'll have this pain and you'll do this, and there's fear around the human body. And part of my journey, my own personal journey, was to debunk that fear myself. And as I took that away, the trajectory of my life changed. When
you left prison, was it difficult for you to figure out what purpose was? What you had to do, what you wanted, or you were very clear that this is what you wanted to?
I made a commitment.
This was your path.
Yeah, I knew that I was facing 40, 60, 80, whatever years. I knew it was a lot. And I knew that the turning point was when I prayed, I asked for help, I got it. For me, that was my message. And if there's ever a time in my life to listen, because I wasn't very much at listening at that point, that was my point. And so I knew that was my purpose. And immediately I got out, went to a brilliant man, Dr. David Rubenstein. He had helped me get out of pain at one point. And he was a grandfather of neuromuscular calibration. And I said, hey, let's take what you're doing and make it clinical. And that was how I started.
What is neuromuscular recalibration? Recalibration.
It's slow, methodical movements that balance the signals between the brain's function and the muscle function to deliver a range of motion that's smooth and helps remove pain.
Okay, so this is the method that chiropractors do to basically help patients.
No, it's a method he created, and chiropractors and people like that are starting to do things like this. But again, it takes a long time for a modality like that to start to work its way in. Chiropractic's been there for a long time. There's like 300 disciplines of chiropractic. So there are people that use forms of this right now. There's systems out there that use self-care forms of neuromuscular calibration, and like functional patterns. It's east loading and eccentric loading. That's creating a neuromuscular pattern. And there are people that are doing things like that right now, but I used that till it stopped working, and then it stopped working. I was looking for more. I remember Dr. Rubenstein said to me at the time, I was using it was called brain-body calibration of the Rubenstein method, and all of a sudden, and it was working, but I had to do it more frequently. And then one day it stopped working.
Right.
And then he was working with me. He said to me, I don't know what to do with you, but I know it has something to do with fascia, and I just don't know anything about it. And that's the turning point for me, because I knew that he could no longer help me. I knew I had to find another way to do it, and our paths eventually split. And it wasn't amicable, and I don't. At that time, I was dealing with a lot of post-traumatic stress. I don't look back at those times and say that I was functioning at my best in my relationships, my partnerships, my intimate relationships. I was in post-traumatic stress. I'd come out of prison. I had 8 concussions at that point. I was functioning the best that I could every day.
And so after that relationship ended, what happened?
I met my wife, and I was working with a lot of celebrities and professional athletes. I'd learned this method, and I was using it and then mashing it up with a couple of other things I learned. And I was just treating them like I had clients like Disney and Getty, and I had clients like...
So you opened a clinic, basically.
And I was actually, before the clinic, I was just, my wife and I just...
You were just like consultants.
We just put a table in our truck. We drove 2 people.
Oh, cool.
And they just paid us to take care of them. And we were trying to figure out how to take this to the next step. Yeah. And one of the guys that I'd hired at the clinic, at the Rubenstein Center, he came along and he created this way of releasing muscles, and it was like a functional release, and it became the posture correction therapy. His name is Joseph Gonzalez, and we started the Human Garage with that. But that partnership ended because I wanted to bring in more people, and again, there's like things that worked until they didn't work, and this is like a lot of what happens in therapy. Things work till they don't work, and you do something new. Well, that was happening to me, and when I wanted to bring in new modalities, the creators of the old modalities didn't like it, and but I was open. I just like, let's all work together. There's no ego about this. That's not exactly what happened. So that partnership ended, Joseph left, and then all of a sudden, I'm there in a clinic. Now it's me. Now I'm not only the business guy, I'm actually the head therapist, and I got to figure it out. And that's what led to all this discovery of fascia and the working with fascia, the fascia therapies that we had. We had 52 practitioners. We had 25 disciplines. Our patients were like everybody from Ben Affleck to Anita Morjani to U.S. Olympic team, Tri Bourne, Tyson Gay, Andre Ethier, the Dodgers, the vice president of the Dodgers, Lon Rosen, like all of the top celebrities, athletes in the world were our patients at the Human Garage. And And we were mixing everything together. We had all of these things where we took the walls out. We were doing things that no one else were doing. And at that time, it was also very threatening to government systems medicine again. So here I am, threatening the system again. And it wasn't long until we'd run tens of thousands of tests. We had 10,000 active patients. We ran tens of thousands of tests. And we found that people were sick and getting sick and sicker and more dehydrated. And we went online and started talking about this chronic dehydration and why.
And why?
At the time, we were doing hair follicle testing. We'd done thousands of them. We found barium, strontium, aluminum in everybody's hair from all over the world. And it couldn't be just, it couldn't just be a fluke accident. Like, this had to come. It couldn't come from water. It's different everywhere. It can't come from food. It had to come from some delivery system. And lo and behold, that's what we're using for geoengineering.
Right.
Cloud chemtrails. And barium depletes silica, and aluminum is neuromuscular diseases, Parkinson's, MS, stuff like that. Strontium loads in the lungs, creates edema when you get sick. That sounds a lot like COVID. And barium depletes the body's silica. And when the silica is gone, you don't absorb the minerals properly. And when you don't absorb the minerals, you dehydrate. So we have a population of people becoming chronically dehydrated. You know, today in medical school, they're teaching 60% hydration right now today. 30 years ago, it was 70%. 30 years before that, it was 80%. So we've chronically dehydrated as a society. Simultaneously, all these diseases are going up. And science is measuring all the diseases, and they're also measuring all these ways to measure the effects on people, but they're measuring the effects on people that are getting sicker constantly. So if you keep the way we do science on the human body is we test on people. But if I tested on you and you're 80% water and you're healthy, or if I test on you 60% water and stressed out, that same test is going to look very different. And so we're constantly testing on sicker and sicker people. So the results that we get in today's science on the body, that's why they're being debunked, is because we're testing on sick people and we're manipulating the science. And
we are manipulating the science.
And you say it like, what are we saying today about science, about the human body? What are we saying? This is the science, this is the way it is, that we're going to say in 10 years or 20 years, that's a lie. What are we saying that was a lie 10, 20 years ago?
Right.
So this is where it comes back down to understanding your own body. My whole goal is not to use science. We can use science where it's applicable, but science has been proven wrong so many times. It's time that we just stop falling for this. We teach people what feeling good feels like and what health feels like. And when you feel healthier, do more of that. When you feel less healthy, do less of that. And educating people about what it feels like and what healthy feels like, not what stimulation feels like.
The human body is a very complicated system, but one of the most important points that a surgeon friend of mine told me is that when he cuts people open, it doesn't matter what race you are, we're all the same on the inside, right?
Right.
So that's interesting. That was a very interesting part when he said that, and I thought to myself, like, how much do we learn about the human anatomy in general, and how much do we learn about our bodies bio-individually when we grow up in school? Like, very little, really. And how much of us really pay attention to science anyways? There's some who really love the science behind everything, and others who don't even find that interesting because, let's face it, just school is boring. It isn't even like, I found it really boring when I was at school. I never really enjoyed science, for example. The human anatomy wasn't even something interesting to me. I was more into history and poetry, and I was artistic and creative. However, if you're able to educate the children in a very fun way, you can actually educate them in a sense that they understand human anatomy. By the time they hit their adulthood in their 20s, that they're able to understand symptoms and treat them by themselves.
Or understand the cause of symptoms.
Yeah, exactly. Understanding these root cause of symptoms, which, by the way, 100 years ago, they did understand that.
We did, yes.
You know, and today we don't understand that anymore because we cut out the information we don't want to give to kids in the system today.
75 to 85% of all care was done by moms and grandmothers in the neighborhoods 50 years ago.
Right. Today,
95+% is done by a single source. That single source is currently failing. And we're currently in the largest health crisis in the history of known mankind. There's no marker of being human that is better off than we were 30 years ago. There's not one. We're not living longer. We have more disease, more dysfunction. Every disease known to mankind is at its peak. Every allergy, every intolerance. So all of the science and all of the modern practices and all the ancient practices, which people are doing more of, arguably today than they were 30, 40 years ago. Nobody knew what chiropractic was or yoga was or functional medicine was 30 years ago. But today everybody's involved in that. But simultaneously, we're all doing these things. And at the same time, we're sicker than we've ever been. What does that tell you? It tells you that something's not working.
Yeah.
And we are doubling down on the things that we've always been doing, trying to find the next best thing, but none of those things are working currently.
If we looked at the human anatomy and like really understood it, people at this current day and age just think that we're just a set of organs or muscles or tissue, but you look at it in a completely different way.
I do.
Because people don't even understand what you talk about, honestly.
Not yet. They will.
But the fascia, which what you speak about, it's your truth, it's what you advocate for, is a hidden web of life in the human body. And it's really what connects everything that we have inside of us. Mm-hmm. So I want you to just talk a little bit about the fascia, what that is, and how that truly helps human health and optimize human health.
Okay, my background is I'm a problem solver. And if you want to solve a problem in technology or business, you got to go to two places: origin, like how we made, and how is it used? How is it created? How is it used? When a sperm and an egg get together, there's a flash of light that no one can explain. First of all, this light, it blinds the microscope. So there's an excessive amount of light, and there's a ball of plasma that forms. And in that ball of plasma, there's these two nerve clusters that form, and these two nerve clusters are attached to each other like with a string. They look like two little round things. There's not one scientist that can tell you until about 7 weeks which one will be the brain, which one will be the small intestine.
92% of UAE residents say air quality at home directly affects their health. At AWA, clean air is not just a feature, it's a foundation. Their homes are built with advanced purification systems to remove toxins and pollutants before they reach your lungs, because the path to longevity starts with every breath. And AWA is where air restores you.
So to say our gut is our second brain is actually incorrect. The brain is the attached to it. It's already there. And that ball of plasma is actually plasma. It's our fascia. The musculoskeletal system grows out of it. So your nerves, your tendons, your organs, your glands, your bones, your brain, everything is grown in fascia. So we're made of fascia. And furthermore, if you can cut everything out of the human body, you can cut an eyeball out, you can cut a hair out, you can cut a tooth, a bone, a gland, you can cut everything out of the human body. The one thing you cannot cut out of the human body is fascia, which implies that we are fascia. Fascia is this crystalline, we are a crystalline structure, and in that, we have all this science about the human body, and it's about your nerves, your tendons, your glands, your bones, your brains, and all these things. Lymph nodes, those are all things that support the fascia. But we have very little science to talk about the intelligent casing that connects it. And it's kind of like taking all this furniture here and in this house out here in Sweden and taking the couches and say this is a brain and that's a heart and the table is a lymph node. And let's take away the house and just leave all the furniture on the front yard. It would make no sense. The furniture would have no purpose if there wasn't a house. Well, our organs and all the things we study in science would have no purpose if there wasn't the house, the fascia. And to make it simple, it's to think about it this way. We think of our brain as being the most intelligent part of us. But when somebody throws something at you and you duck, your brain didn't even know that was happening. When somebody walks into a room and is angry, and you can feel it, your brain didn't know that was happening. It was informed through a feeling sense of your body. Your fascia is the felt sense and the memory of your body. And your brain just tells you what's going on in that felt sense and that memory. And this is where, right now, the world is geared to tell you about what's inside of it, but not about it. And if we look at the furniture without looking at the house collapses. The furniture can be perfectly fine, but the furniture has no value. And this is part of where the shift in the way that we think about health and medicine is coming.
I'm sorry, I need some more water. I feel like I need to cough every single time I keep drinking. So I'm trying to avoid the coughing.
You want more warm water?
Yes, please, please, please. I need to keep sipping, otherwise I'm just gonna cough the whole session. Sorry, that was really good. Oh my God, this is like actually a better episode than the first one recorded. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Way better. Way better. Way more flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also you're open to talking a bit more about things than you did the first time.
Yeah.
But we were pressured for time the last time.
Right.
You know, so you're like, oh my God, I need to go. Okay. Sorry, let me just take this one. Okay. So you seem to talk about fascia like it's the most important part of the body. When you said intelligent casing, that's so cool. I think that's so true because that's what it is, right?
Sure.
But why is it that we don't know about it? Why have I not grown up knowing anything about what you just said to me right now?
Well, listen, we scientifically know lots about the parts of the body, but we have a story that tells us how they fit together. Like we said the bones are structure. None of the bones in the body touch except for the teeth, the rib cage, and the ears. That can't be structure. Structure is like these walls, they're nailed together. Take the knee joint, for example, right? In that knee joint, there's only one muscle crosses the knee, it's this big. I can guarantee that's not holding the knee up. So how does the knee stay up? Well, the tendons keep it from pulling apart. So what's left? You got meniscus, if you touch it, it rips. The only two things left after that is connective tissue and skin, and I'm pretty sure the skin isn't holding it up. So we are, the narrative of who we are and what we are is been told to us. We've been told this is how your body works.
Right.
And what I found is I came from systems and encryption and data and programming and logic. And when I came into medicine, I asked stupid questions like, why is it that way? And then I'd get an answer. And I said, well, why is that this way? And I'd sometimes get another answer. But by the third time I asked that question, every single time, the answer was, well, that's just how the body is. And I said, it can't be that way. Like, I'm okay if you don't know, I'm okay to explore, but I'm not okay for men of science to keep telling me that's the way the body is. The body isn't magic. Even miracles have some sort of mechanics behind it. So whatever, I'm okay to not know it, but I'm not okay to keep saying that's just the way it is.
So you're saying that they didn't know, and that's the reason why we weren't told about it or taught about it in school.
I'm saying that we knew a lot of things, and the story that we're told about how we live and who we are has been completely corrupted and manipulated. And that corruption and manipulation is what's keeping us sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about the narrative of how we live our lives, right? If your car, human garage, if you go to a mechanic, and the mechanic says to you, hey, Mary Christine, I noticed that your brakes are just about failed, but they haven't failed yet. So when they fail, come back to me, we'll do something. Now, that's the stupidest thing. It doesn't even make sense in any reality. But we say, like, you're not sick yet to the point we can measure. So come back in 6 months and we'll look at it again. If you're sick, we'll do something. That's how we say. We're like, these things should work completely fine. And if they're not working fine, you should be angry about it and frustrated and sad or ashamed. Like you did something wrong, you didn't even know. That's the way that we treat the entire human experience from a health perspective. And how does that make sense? It just doesn't make sense. And we're not taught how to take care of ourselves. We're taught to exercise to take care of ourselves. But even if we exercise, people who exercise and take all the supplements and do all the health things, they find themselves very unhealthy right now. And that's what's starting to, the healthy people are now unhealthy finally. And so then there has to be something more. Well, emotions. Like you could do everything right in your life. You can do everything right. You can take all the right supplements, you have your sleep score and everything like that. But if you're harboring anger or fear or resentment, that fear is going to dysregulate your food, it's going to dysregulate your sleep, it's going to dysregulate your relationships, and eventually that fear is going to overtake you.
So are you saying that chiropractors didn't understand the fascia? I'm going to say the reason I asked that
Well, we're
is
taught that
because
the bones are structure.
the reason I asked this question, and I find this topic like extremely interesting, because I've worked with so many people who've been through tons and tons of sessions and have never felt like they haven't been better. They just feel worse and worse, and or it comes back, or they feel better just a little and never getting to the part where they want to feel fully better and fully great. And so is it like there's just a lack of like education and understanding? Because you can spend a ton of money healing, but you're not really truly healing. So what is it about that they just don't understand? Is it like a modality that they're not doing properly, that they don't understand the fascia in the way that you're explaining and the way you're treating? So what's the gap there, really?
It's, if you see the body the way I see the body, the logical consequences of what to do make sense. If you don't see it, if you have another narrative, if the bones are structured, then you're going to do things a certain way. If the bones are responding to structure, you're going to change it. I'll give you an example. At 28 years old, you're 6 feet, what is that, 180 centimeters, something like that, 185 centimeters. So you're 6 feet, 185 centimeters. Well, that person, by the time they're 70 years old, is no longer 6 feet. They're at like 5 feet, or literally, 5'1", 5'2", the average person. And if the bones, if you go and you measure the length of the bones at the time they're 28, and you measure them at the time they died, they haven't changed length. So how'd that person go from 6 feet to 5 feet? The bones can't be structured. So if you change the way that you think, and it's not that, look, I've chiropractors all over the world implementing fascial maneuvers. The ones who care are looking for a new solution.
Yeah.
The doctors that are out there and the practitioners that really, there are really good people. They're just, I learned something, and I practice chiropractic, and I practice all kinds of different forms of medicine over the years. And when I found something better, I used it. Now, the ones who are not finding anything better, that's the issue. The ones who are working progressively, this is a learning experiment, and we have to give everybody a break. We're all taught the same thing, and just the narrative of how we're taught, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But functionally is number one, is that in my own case, if I need somebody else to help me feel better all the time, there's a problem.
Yes.
And the current system is, if you, outside of working out and a few stretches, if you got a problem, you have to go to a doctor of some sort or a practitioner of some sort. That's the functional problem with and it's not to discount the doctors and the practitioners, they're great. But they should be working on complex cases that need their help, not on things that people can do themselves. We need to switch the narrative. We need to put the control back and the responsibility back on people to do 80-85% of the care for themselves. And we have to give them the tools, and we have to teach them that these are things that you need to do. Going and working out at the gym is not going to ensure you're healthy. As a matter of fact, quite frankly, the people who work out in gyms, like I've never seen a bodybuilder live over 100 years old. See, yogis.
But also they pump their bodies with steroids and a lot of hormones. And
but I mean, just even people who work out. I've never seen
else.
anybody work out. I've seen yogis live to 100, but I've never seen somebody who builds muscle live to 100.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah. Again, observation.
That's actually a really good point.
And I'm coming from a guy who's been 225, 110 kilograms or heavier my whole life, very muscular. And I have traded that muscle over the last 7 years. I've traded that for a heavier concentration of fascia, less concentration of muscle. I'm younger, my biological age is changing. I breathe 3 to 4 breaths per minute naturally. My biological age last year was 30. I'm measuring again this year. It's obviously changed. It's physically changed. You can see it. I sleep better. I function better. I have endless amounts of energy all day long. I travel all the time. I'm traveling every 2 weeks. I don't get sick. I'm better in every functional way than when I was 18 or 20.
3 to 4 breaths a minute. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And that's because of what I believe it is, and again, I'm open to being wrong, but I'll just tell you what I'm observing, is that because my fascia is so soft, when I breathe, you felt my arms, they expand and they contract.
Yeah.
And my tissue is being oxygenated just by simply breathing. That's the answer that I come up with. But there is a fact. I'm sitting there, I'll breathe 3 to 4 breaths per minute.
I mean, just to put things in context, because the average person is breathing anywhere between 6 to 12 breaths per minute.
Actually, 15 to 16.
15 to
really
6 to
healthy
12.
6 to 12.
Yeah, 6 to 12. 50, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. 6
Super
to 12,
Olympic athletes, 6
to 12,
6
and
8, 9.
6 to 12 is the standard.
Yeah.
And over that is like what most people are breathing.
Yeah, because
However,
after 12, you're
doing
hyperventilating.
3 to 4. Wow.
Yeah.
That's mega impressive.
Yeah.
And you know, I look at Deepak Chopra a lot, and you know, I kind of like study his modalities and like just look at him as a person. And I seen him at a talk once, and he was like, I've never seen anyone like that when I watch them live or see them speak. It's like the way he was breathing was unlike anything I've ever seen. Like he really was conscious of his breath. And I think that's an incredible thing, because we're not conscious as people in anything that we're doing. We're not mindful, we're not conscious.
Yeah.
We just basically live without even thinking about anything. We don't think about our breath, we don't think about our movement, we don't think about our emotions and how we treat people or talk to people or manage how we react to certain things. And I say that because I think most people in the world are reactive. Always reacting to every single situation, and never taking a pause about breath being number one of it, or even like, how am I feeling at this moment right now? It's more like, I'm not allowed to feel anything, I'm just supposed to be moving and doing. And
you hit it. Human doings.
yeah.
We become human doings.
Yeah.
And what I've been working towards is human being.
Yeah. We're our human doings.
Yeah, and listen, there's no judgment. I mean, I have been the king of human doings my whole life.
Yeah.
But all those things that you just said, I was not aware of, even when I was in clinical practice like 6-10 years ago. Today, I'm super aware. I'm super aware of how I'm walking, how I'm feeling, how am I in relation to other people. Those parts are being part of what I call conscious. And before I was very unconscious. I was not aware, like you said.
A lot of people automatically have this misconception and think that true happiness is the ability to just be happy all the time. But I know for a fact that true happiness is being able to feel all of your emotions fully and to be able to not be ruled by that.
Yeah, how about to be present and observe
Because
all of the states, that's what you're saying.
yeah, to just be able to just feel
Acceptance.
that and not to be ruled by it, because we are walking reactions and we're ruled by our emotions all the time, and we base our emotions on those reactions. Instead, happiness for me is that being able to feel anger, feel pain, feel fear, yet don't let that consume you or control you. Be able to sit with that. Be able to feel comfort in that, and yet react with positivity and knowing that your reaction is not going to add a negative experience, because you're not screaming or yelling or screaming at your partner or screaming at your kid or getting mad at yourself because you made an error or something. You know, this is how we live. This is the human existence today. We're just reacting.
So if you're hungover, even lights or sounds in the room are very agitating. You have little capacity for excess stimulus. When we're stressed out, every emotion we become reactive to. When we're out of stress, we have more capacity for those emotions. So what I found in my own personal life was I started doing these fascial maneuvers, and within 3 months, all of a sudden I'm not only out of stress, I'm processing emotions and traumas that I didn't even know I had. And because when trauma is a physical or emotional perceptual, it's an event, something that happened. Yeah. It's an emotion attached to it: anger, shame, guilt, fear. And then it's a story I tell myself. It's a triangle. And the funny thing about trauma is a lot of people try to resolve trauma by talking about it, and that helps. And screaming out or punching out their emotions, that also helps. But you have to address the tissue, deal with the emotions, and tell a new story for trauma to go. When the body's in stress, it can't complete that triangle. And this is what is currently occupying almost everybody in every way. 20 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago in clinic, if I said, it's just trauma, people go, trauma? I wasn't sexually abused. I wasn't in a war. You know, today, every kid is like my trauma. So we are becoming, and the reason why this is that we have more stress that we're not able to remediate. And this is my practice. All of the practitioners, all the care, when the pandemic came, I was doing good when I was in clinic, but I was getting treated 3 to 5 times a week. And that's not practical for anybody in the world. When the pandemic came, I had to figure my own problem out again. And the way I figured my own problem is I'd start doing these maneuvers, and sometimes I was doing 3, 4, 5 times a day because I was in stress and pain. But over time, I got myself out of stress and out of pain, and constantly my stress went down, and then I had more capacity to have all of these emotions again.
So did you create a modality to help with stress daily?
Well, that's what it was. But it wasn't about stress. It was about getting rid of the pain. And then when I got rid of the pain all the time, because pain itself is stressful.
Right.
So when I got rid of the pain constantly, and I had pain, I could do something. And it may only last for a couple hours, but I was able to do something about it. And when I got out of the pain and I did something about it, and I repeated that action, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Trying not to cough, but it's coming.
You're doing good.
So bad. Okay, 6.
So doing these maneuvers, I would do them sometimes 2, 3, 5, 6, 10 times a day because I had a little pain. I'd get out of that pain. I'd spend 2 to 3 minutes and get out of that pain. Well, as I did that over time, my baseline stress dropped. And then as my baseline stress dropped, then I started to realize that what I was doing was reducing stress, which allowed me more capacity for those emotions, the observation of those emotions. I became less reactive. And as that happened over time, by the 3rd month, all of a sudden I'm releasing traumas that I didn't even know I had.
But for example, like I don't feel any pain in my body.
You're
right?
a Capricorn.
I don't feel pain. For example, I would have moments where, but I'm stressed, but I have no pain, but I'm stressed.
Well,
And I can feel reactive on certain things, and people can trigger me.
you'll have pain eventually.
And
If you keep stressed without doing something about it.
right.
So if I can have pain and I get rid of pain and eventually gets rid of stress, and then eventually I can process emotions, it works the other way around in reverse.
But what am I doing in that moment when I'm not feeling pain, but I want to release the stress and not become reactive? There is a fascial maneuver.
Yeah, the 15-minute
Anyway,
stress reset.
yeah.
You could do that, and literally within 15 minutes, 75 to 90% of the stress, no matter how you measure it, is gone. You can feel it, you can measure it. It's visceral. And if you do that over and over again, and this is why fascial maneuvers, this is why there's like 50 plus million people around the world doing this today, and it's expanding so fast, because it's free, it's simple, it's easy, it's something that anybody can do, and you get yourself out of stress and out of pain instantaneously.
So the 15-minute reset is something that you recommend somebody to do every day, just to put their body into a reset, regardless if you have pain or not, because, you know, what we feel on the inside is more important than just what we feel on the outside, right?
Sure.
And people don't listen to those signals at all, by the way. And I know this for a fact because I worked with so many people who never listen to any kind of feeling. They don't even understand their gut intuition or refuse to listen to it, right?
Sure.
Because too stubborn, or, you know, there's always something happening externally that you forget that that's the most important thing that you need to listen to.
Too much stress.
Too much stress. Another factor is also when you have a lot more weight. So if you're someone that has packed on an extra 10, 20 kgs, you're not even able to listen between your ghrelin and your leptin hormones anymore. So you don't understand, you know, your hunger hormones are all over the place. So for example, you don't know whether you're hungry or whether you're just dehydrated anymore, right? So because a lot of people mistake hunger for dehydration. When you're actually thirsty, you think that you're hungry. So people consume more food when they should be drinking more. So there's also that element happening there. And there isn't anything, they're not listening to any of the signals because there is no more signals. It's all whacked. Right?
Hungry or even stressed. You know what I found? So I started this journey with Jason and Cynthia, my partners. I started this journey in 2021, this time of year. It was in May, it was like May 9th, so a month ago. We started with a 44-day fast. 2 weeks without water, 6 weeks without food. And I learned that changed my entire belief system about food, medicine, emotion, stress, trauma, everything. Because in that 44 days, lots came out. But what was crazy about it was I realized, you know, somewhere around 3 or 4 weeks in, there was like, we would have these moments where it felt like I was hungry, but we weren't hungry. It was emotions that were coming out. But our way of dealing with the emotions, one way to deal with emotion is to put food in. And that's when the maneuvers, we would do the maneuvers, we would go in a lake, we'd go in an ocean, and we just kept doing that over. We were like 6 weeks without any food and 2 weeks without any water to start off with. And that radically shifted all of my belief systems. Yeah. It taught me that I'm not addicted to food. Food is not a fuel, but a medication. That I use food to satisfy my emotions more than I did my hunger. These were all things that came out of that I learned. And with that information, I crafted a whole new way of looking at the human experience.
We are a society that's so focused on doing more workouts, more working, more eating, more drinking, more addiction, more supplements, just more. But your theory is you focus on more undoing.
Yes.
More relaxation, more understanding something completely different from that. Yeah. So can we just talk a little bit about that theory?
Sure. Let's use a bathtub analogy, and let's say that in a bathtub, the water level is your life force, and you have it 3/4. And all of a sudden the drain pops out, and you're losing your life force. So our current philosophy is turn the water on. Like take another supplement, go to the gym, take another mitochondria booster, take another, do another cold therapy and a plunge and all these different things. They all work. And it's not saying that they're bad, but our current philosophy is do more. And I did that. Yeah. I did that, and eventually I can't do anymore. Why don't we just plug the hole? And plugging the hole is removing the restrictions in our life. The restrictions, like we get up, and if we are dehydrated, when we move, every movement becomes stressful. That means we fire adrenaline in movement. The origin of all movement is breath. And if you're dehydrated and you're restricted, your breath becomes stressful. So instead of breathing 6 breaths, you're breathing 12, or you're breathing 15 or 16 or 18. And that itself becomes oxidizing and becomes stressful. So we've been looking at the problem the wrong way. We can't put more horsepower on. We got to take away what's stopping that current power from being utilized properly. And that just makes sense. I mean, that's not science of the body. That's just mechanics and physics. And if we apply physics and mechanics to the human experience, it tends to make a lot more sense to me than the current way we look at it.
What makes sense exactly?
Remove a restriction, because restriction is what causes stress.
What are we removing?
Well, one of them is like fascial restrictions. So if I'm dehydrated and I'm not dealing with emotion, I keep like feeling that weight on my shoulder. I don't do anything about it. That restriction now is going to stop my breathing properly. My lungs are not going to expand. My shoulder's going to get tight. I'm going to expand my upper chest, not my lower chest. I'm not going to get the oxygen delivered. As a result, I'm going to breathe more. As I breathe more, I can have more stress. I'm going to have more stress. I'm not going to eat as good. I'm not going to process and digest properly. I'm not going to sleep as good. So why don't we remove the restrictions that we have in our bodies first, take the body out of stress, and then look at what we can apply. And then when we apply something, it's really truly for performance, not to trying to get back to zero.
Right.
I noticed something in the clinic. 10,000 active patients. I interviewed almost every patient, did the consult for almost everyone that came in. And I was looking for ways to know because we had thousands on a wait list, and I wanted to be more successful. So how could I determine which ones would be successful or not? It finally put them into 2 buckets or categories. And the craziest thing was, I knew that they were going to be successful or not by the way they described their condition when they came in. There's one of 2 schools of thoughts. They said, I have this problem. I need to get it out of the way so I can go back to doing whatever I was doing. I need to get back to zero. That was one way of describing it. They said 1,000 different ways to get it, but that was really the outcome. The other one is, I want to do something in my life and my body's in the way. The first one, no matter what, if I need to get back to my old life, they're never going to be successful. And if they are, they're going to be back. The other ones are, I want to do something in my life, my body's not letting me. Yeah. You give them a tool, you help them out, you never see them again except for to come back and say thank you. The other ones, they're back in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, they're always back. And that was the determining this success, is how I described myself.
Right. Wow, that's a really powerful one.
Yeah, and this is over tens of thousands of clients.
What is your thoughts about pain?
Well, you and I did it.
Yeah.
We can go back to that.
The reason I want to bring that
up. Can we link that in
the... We will definitely link that in.
Pain is the greatest... Let me tell you about pain. Pain is the greatest motivator of the human experience. And people have learned to use pain as a way of motivating or controlling masses of people. So let me give you an example. If you go back into the ancient times, they would get everybody together in a pyramid in the square, and they would at a very certain time, eclipse is coming. They said, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to do this to the sun. They would go black, and then they go, the crops are going to die. Everybody go, oh, I got to listen to you, otherwise I'm going to have pain. And so they controlled the population with that pain. That if you don't listen to me, I'm going to take away your food and you're going to have pain. And over hundreds or thousands of years, people started to figure this out, that this thing happened to my father, my grandfather, and the younger generation came in and said, hey, wait a second here. This happened last year, same time. It's like an annual thing. What if there's a pattern in the world? So they had to take pain and move pain of the fear and the pain to control society. They had to move it someplace that people couldn't find it. So in comes religion. If you don't listen to me, you're going to have pain when you die. Yeah. You're going to have a horrible death. And that's like, first of all, that makes, from a consciousness spirituality, that makes 0 sense. And from every part of consciousness, this is the painful part, which we came here and we accept it too. But pain after you die, so you got to listen to me, otherwise you're going to have pain. You're not going to have this good life. You're going to go to hell, or whatever it is. Or you're not going to get the 72 virgins, or whatever the version of it is that you got. So that worked for hundreds of years. And then there are people like me that said, hey, you know something? I just want to have fun. So screw that. I'll take the pain when I die. So they had to resurrect pain. They had to bring it back from the death. So they brought pain back into the present moment, and they put it in the hands of a doctor, the current doctor, who said, if you don't listen to me, you're going to have pain now. Yeah, right. And you're going to die. You're going to have pain all the way to the time you die. So pain has been the greatest motivator of human experience. And what I've learned is that in my own, because in pain my whole life, 4 to 6 pain for 20 years, a 6 to 9 pain for 10 years, 10 of that 20 years, I learned that pain was relative, and pain was my body's way of telling me that there's something wrong, and if I listen to it and acknowledge it, it goes away. That's why that experiment I showed you, I put your body into pain, and instantaneously, when you acknowledged it, by your touching it, it went away, touching it a second time went away, and then you told your body, I'm safe, I'm okay with this, and the pain goes away. I have found that to work with every part of the human experience, and if you have a pain that's not going away, it's just because you haven't listened enough yet.
Yeah. I like that thing that we did with the pain modality, because it really took me back to my 20s, where I went through such a difficult time. And during that experience, I used my pain to behave in toxic ways, and do toxic things. And I acted out of desperation. I did a lot of things that I'm not really proud of. And that's what we go through when we don't know how to be able to manage the pain.
Sure. And
then as we get older and we develop a lot more wisdom and experience, I've come to the realization that I've become so much better with managing pain because I've been able to sit with it, understand it, truly feel it, accept that it isn't something that's going to destroy my life. Instead, it's a motivator to bring me back to my center.
Sure.
Let's just say that.
Make you aware of something.
Yeah, to make me more aware, but also inspire me to utilize that to become the best version of myself and not the worst version of myself, and how I used to react to it in my 20s. And I was always using toxic modalities to focus on the pain, you know?
I'm there.
Which most people are doing till this day, right? Because they're not able to sit comfortably with pain, because they're afraid, because fear is a very difficult feeling to sit with, and fear of the unknown, fear of the future, fear of being alone, fear of being rejected. It's a fear of everything, right? And for us, at the end of the day, if we are not able to sit comfortably with that, who are we then as people? How are we able to progress in life and do better and be better if it isn't for that? So for me, at this day and age, I believe that what we did was just a really great experience. Is that if we can sit with those emotions and sit with that, we can either transform to a toxic environment to a positive environment in where we want to see our future.
Yeah, the experiment that we went through where we put you into that level 8 or 9 pain was to show you that once you acknowledge the source of the pain goes away instantaneously. So pain itself, anything above a 2 pain in the body, in my estimation, working with pain and tens of thousands of people in pain, is that anything over a 2 pain is an emotion or a fear of something that I'm not willing to acknowledge. And when I address it, the pain instantaneously starts to go away.
You've said before that we're not broken, we're blocked. What are we most commonly blocked by?
We're blocked by programming, belief systems, and we're being programmed into who we are, what we are. We're being programmed by TV. We're blocked by social media.
Every day.
We're blocked by endocrine disruptors. I mean, you and I both spend a lot of time in Dubai, and you walk into a mall and it's endocrine disruptors, perfumes, and we're blocked by all of these things that are currently, it's death by 1,000 cuts. So it's not one thing anymore. And, you know, I was talking to Zach, and I know you've talked to him several times, and you know, Zach, he knows more about how humanity and society works. He has a better handle of it than any other practitioner I know, doctor or scientist.
I agree.
And he said the other day to me on a podcast, he goes, in the next 40 to 80 years, at our current rate, human beings are extinct, like the entire species of human, because of what we've done with chemicals and with antibiotics, and that they're everywhere. And that leads us to believe that there's something going to happen with the species of human, which I do believe. And we are currently blocked by all of this. We're blocked by the 1,000 cuts. We're blocked by every belief system that we have. You know, like we're good, we're bad, we can, we can't, we're male, we're female, we're not male, we're not female. All these things are what's stopping us right now. And the answer is really simple. I find that when I took my body out of stress, and I did it over a long enough period of time, the answers that I sought for all these issues started to go away.
It's really stress, right? Stress has always been the biggest denominator of why most people are sick.
Stress is
just
everything.
able to handle that, because stress, we both know that stress causes inflammation. Inflammation is the root of sickness and disease. And if we're just able to manage the inflammation in our bodies through managing stress, to managing, you know, what we're consuming every single day, not just from what we see and what we hear, what we eat, you know, how we eat that. Because if you're stressed, your body's not able to absorb the nutrients. We all know this as fact. You know, and anything that we're doing, our body is always speaking to each other for the brain and our gut, always. And that bidirectional communicator, that bidirectional messaging system is always going to be our, let's just say, our definition on how long we're going to live, right? And every single time I'm speaking to someone who either has constipation, IBS, PCOS, bloating issues, acid reflux issues, I'm like, how are you managing your stress? What is it about your stress that you are not allowing to heal? Because true healing is being able to sit with your emotions, deal with your stress, understand the modalities that helps with that. And it isn't just fascial maneuvers that helping you with that. No. It's everything from how you speak to yourself. Do you find yourself worthy? Are you sleeping enough? Because Brian Johnson spoke about the importance of sleep. I have never in my whole life had gut-related issues. The reason I say that is because I've always made sleep a priority, no matter what. I have an extremely healthy circadian rhythm. I've never been caffeinated my entire life, which means that I never wake up with an alarm clock or go to bed putting one on. I understand my cycles really well, and I listen to the rhythms of my body. And I believe that if every single human being understood rhythm and flow, we wouldn't be living in a pandemic of disease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Let me give you an idea, because you're talking about stress. So perception plays a big role in stress. Example, your partner, husband, wife, partner, is not answering your calls, coming home late. You have a perception that they're cheating on you. Now your sleep is disrupted. You think about this all day long. Your work is disrupted, your food. You're not digesting properly. This goes on for 2 weeks. You're coming up to your birthday. Then boom, your birthday. You find out they'd been planning a surprise party for you. Now the perception is affected your biology that created that stress environment that kept you in a sick mode for 2 weeks. And this is why perception is, and what hijacks perceptions is physiological stress. So there's all the hormones in your body, like anxiety and excitement, they're the same physical presentation of hormones, but your perception tells you which one it is, or sadness and joy. That's why you cry when you're sad and cry when you're joy. Your perception tells you which one. If your body's in stress because of dehydration, because of not sleeping, because of all these different not understanding your rhythms, eating bad foods or chemicals, you automatically choose the negative one, and you have to work to be positive, which is stressful.
That's such a good way of looking at it. I haven't even thought about it that way, but that's true.
It is.
It couldn't be more right than that. We put ourselves in this stressful state without even thinking we're putting ourselves in that stressful state.
Yeah.
Another thing is, I realized, and I noticed actually, which I found like really, it was fun, was when you came to my walking club recently and you did a little class. And I noticed at the end of that session when we all sat down, you actually didn't sit, you squatted.
Yeah.
And I like that because not a lot of people even understand, like in our prehistoric era, specifically in anthropological studies, that in those tribes in those days, people sat in active sitting. They didn't actually sit the way we sit today. They sat squatted. And because for them, they actually moved more by standing, walking, running, and active squatting. And that was the most beneficial way of sitting.
Yeah.
Well, while today, which is the normal phenomenon, is that everybody in that circle that we sat in, and we were like, 40 people? Everybody sat, and you were the only person that squatted.
I'm the only person on an airplane up like this in my seat.
Right?
Yeah,
Because
I'm in
you're
a
the
first class
only
seat
one,
sometimes.
and you're the only one that understands why. And even like the way we sit, like I have a squatty potty.
Yeah.
Right? And because that's the proper way of sitting when you are going to the toilet, right? But people don't really understand that. And people
You're gonna laugh. Okay.
People don't even understand that. But really, active sitting, the way we sit today, is just the very reason why we have so many chronic diseases, when we're actually supposed to be sitting, active, squatting, and actually standing more and walking more than we're sitting. So please tell me your story.
Because I don't have a squatty potty when I travel. It's a little hard to put in a briefcase.
What do you do? What?
I just get up. I put my feet on that toilet
And you,
and I
oh
squat.
my God.
And, and I used to laugh at these. I knew this yogi and he used to do this and I used to laugh at him like, you're an idiot.
No, that's the way.
And here I am, and all these students would come over. I had this office, and it was by a language school. All these students would come from India and Asia, and they'd have to put signs up like no squatting on the toilets. And here I am. Here I am in my mid-50s. Yeah, it sounds crazy, but the little things that I do every day are why I live the way I live.
Yeah.
And as you were talking about the squatty potty, I just couldn't help but laugh because I made fun of all the people who did stuff like that.
Yeah, I did that same thing too. I made fun of all those people. I mean, I climbed Kilimanjaro. All of the toilets were literally, you were just squatting.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, truly, we have lost the true essence of what humanity is about. How we lived, how we communicated, how we cared for ourselves, how we spoke to each other, how we spoke to ourselves. And I highlight this so much in general in this episode about emotions, about self-worth and self-love, because what we are and who we are is just a set of emotions and feelings, and if we're not able to manage that and be able to sit with that, we're harboring our own disease.
Yeah.
We need to stop blaming other people for the way we are.
Yeah.
Instead, we need to look internally and understand that the root cause of our own disease and the problems we have and the environment we put ourselves in is all because of ourselves. And if we can forget about, if there's one thing I think that people need to take away from this episode, is that take us back to what it was 100, 200, 300, 1,000 years ago, and how we lived as people. It's exactly like how you live today. And you're a living example. You really walk the talk. It doesn't matter where you are, who you're with. I watch you, I observe you, I see you, and I can feel the way you are is just how we were in this monkey gorilla generation civilization, is where that's how we actually just take us back to our roots.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be living in a disease-centric environment if we just go back to our roots.
Some people would say we don't give a squat, but we do.
We do give a squat. But if there was one thing, when you look back at the person that you were, when you were living in that chronic pain, that version of yourself, if you can look back at that person and tell that person just one thing about pain, what would be that thing?
The pain is trying to teach me something. And if I listen to it and ask the right questions, I'll find the answer. Stop trying to fix it. Because if I fix the pain without listening to why it's there, when it comes back, it will be worse. And I have documented that scientifically through tens of thousands of interactions.
So how are people who are going through insane amount of trauma? I would say because, men process trauma through anger. And a lot of men react and unable to sit with the pain and the trauma, and their triggers are anger. They either get physically violent, emotionally abusive, or they break things, which I've seen in a lot of cases. And what would you say to men like that?
Well, I've done all of those. And the way through this is to take the body out of stress. You take the body out of stress. If you're in pain, do a 15-minute stress reset. It works. You take the body out of stress and you do that. If you have to do that twice a day, 3 times a day, 10 times a day, over a period of time, 28 days of doing that every day, 1, 2, 3, 10 times, you will have a radical shift in the way that your body manages pain, the energy and capacity that you have to move past it. And that is the one thing we can do. We can circumvent this at the physical level. And if we circumvent it at the physical level, eventually the biology will win.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of men who are against this kind of modalities, like this kinds of they resist.
They
this
were.
type.
They were, but
they're
here-
resistant, right, to this type of change. And how can we convince them,
we don't
educate
have to.
them?
I have the perfect solution.
What's the solution?
When the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, even men will change. Now, here's an interesting thing, okay? Our social media and following, active following, typically, but the ones who engage have been 75 to 78% women since the beginning of Human Garage, even at the clinic. 1 month ago, we had a shift, and this happened in the clinic over time. Women would come, then the guys would come. We changed the modality. Women would come, then the guys would come. So last month, for the first time in 6 years, my active engaged followers went to 55% men in 1 month.
This is beautiful.
That means that at society level, we're finally at the pain where men are now paying attention.
Yeah.
And so I'm very, very hopeful that, not even hopeful, I know that I've been waiting for this moment. Because literally, when we notice this, like, yeah, we're all like, hey, we did it. We're at that point now where men are changing. And it just shows us that we're on the right track. We have hit that pain button, and it is getting to a point where we can't brush it off anymore.
I think it's also another reason why a lot more men are coming. I think it's just we're definitely in a pandemic of loneliness. People feel so disconnected.
There's mostly men at your walk.
Yeah, it's a lot of men at the walk.
Yeah, it was
too.
2/3 or more men.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah,
and,
feeling lonely and disconnected.
lonely,
and you know what's funny
You're
is
right,
that
very true.
they all wanted a hug.
Yeah.
The hug. And it was because it was okay to be hugged there. And these are like tough men, businessmen.
Totally.
Yeah, but
You saw that.
yeah, but as soon as it was coming to hug time, they were like, "Hey, give me an extra hug."
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was okay. You created a safe place
Yeah.
for a man to get a hug, and I think that's important.
And there was a guy that came up to me and he said, "You know what? I've been to so many runs and so many boot camps and HIIT, but I love that there's a spiritual element to what you do at yours." Because sure, men have been programmed that they can't talk about their feelings. They can't show that they're vulnerable. They can't experience pain in the way that women experience pain and talk about it and be vocal about it. But it's changing in a sense that I'm a woman and I'm in an environment where I host not just women, but also men. And I want both of them to be in a room and to experience that there isn't a segregation between men and women. We can thrive in environments together and be vulnerable together and feel the same kinds of emotions, and it's okay. And I think there's so much power in that. And it's that I have experienced loneliness and sadness and extreme bouts of depression at many points in my life, like many of us. And when you sit with that emotion and don't know what to do with it, because I've been in many situations like yourself that I've had suicidal thoughts and actions leading to that, where I now come to a point is that I realize that there isn't a single person in the world today that has never experienced trauma. And there isn't a single person in the world today that is angry and has shown anger, and I don't see the human side of that. And I always look at it from less about the anger or whatever they're experiencing in that moment that's negative, and more about what is it that I can do to help them.
Yeah, why are they there?
Why are they there?
Yeah.
Because I've been there too.
Yeah, you're at the biggest part of my transition was compassion.
Yeah.
And people say this, you got to have compassion, but it starts off trying to have compassion for other people, but eventually you have compassion for enough people. I did anyways. I had compassion for enough people that I eventually became compassionate with myself.
Yeah.
That was a journey.
But isn't that's exactly what it was for me too. It just was, it transformed so much with me working with so many different people and like finding ways to heal them, that I started having that for myself.
Right.
It's crazy.
Doctor, heal thyself.
It's
and
crazy.
and we're on this journey, and I find mostly with practitioners and healers and therapists and trainers and stuff like that, my experience is, for myself, and I've observed this in other people, is that they're trying to resolve something in themselves, and that's why they're obsessively trying to help others, and eventually that turns, and it's a beautiful point when it turns. It seems obsessive now when I watch people that are out there in the healing space, the teaching space, and they're obsessively trying to get their point across, and then there's a switch that flips, and that switch flips, and then they go, oh, it's me.
Yeah,
And when that happens, that's when change happens.
definitely. What does Be That Life mean to you?
Be That Life, the what that really means to me is to be authentic and show up and it means to be authentic and just show up as who you are. And when I show up the person that I am, authenticity is the highest state of awareness. It's the highest frequency. It's above love. And authenticity is exactly what you're driving at.
Yeah, and what we need more in the world, because our society tells us to be everything aside from authentic and who we are.
Yeah, it's our life.
It's like a complete opposite of who we need to be, is what we're programmed to be.
You said it, be that life. And that life, we are life. And if I be the life, then I'm a human being. If I'm doing the life, I'm a human doing.
Yeah, beautiful. Garry, this was an incredible, incredible session. Thank you so much for opening your heart to me, being vulnerable, talking about the things that so many people so desperately need to hear. We're living really in a society that is desperate for change and that's lonely and want to connect and to be a part of a community. And I'm so happy you have created such a large community. And I'm so happy to be a part of your life and your community, and that you're a part of my life and my community. And I can't wait to see more incredible things that we're going to be doing together and healing people together. And that's what it is, right? By just healing others, we heal ourselves. And that's where true compassion comes from. So
I'm getting all emotional now.
yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Garry.
And